This SoonerScoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
I honestly don't really remember the first pitch, but I just remember rounding the bases with my team's arms wide open and starting to get really teary-eyed and really emotional. And it was just really, really cool to have them with us this whole time. And we never got out of it. We kept the faith until the end. And just being able to run into them was like really, really, really awesome.
Hello and welcome back. What a moment yesterday at the Women's College World Series. OU softball opens up with a 4-3 come-from-behind victory. Obviously, Ella Parker with the 3-run walk-off and unbelievable. OU softball,
unbelievable,
they find ways to win.
But very believable.
Very believable. That's exactly the way to say it. What an opening to the Women's College World Series, too. Now setting up an OU-Texas matchup on Saturday. This isn't a stickball report. Bob Prisbill is going to be up at Devon Park on Saturday for the 2 o'clock start. You can watch that on ABC. The winner of that would be somewhat in a driver's seat into having to get beat twice to go to the championship series, but unbelievable win for OU softball. And I'm sure that Carrie and I and Isaac were sitting here. We did the family business yesterday. You can watch that here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel with the great George Kittle from the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, he's awesome. I mean, you can tell why. He's just, everybody loves the guy.
Yeah.
But either way, softball, we were sitting in here watching it, and it was just kind of one of those moments like OU softball, they come up in these big moments, these big stages, and especially, up the road in Oklahoma City, and they just find ways to win. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy because you and I were talking about it, but as soon as she walked up there, you're like, is this really about to happen?
Every one of the big time bats before her, they have all had one of those moments.
They just get on base. They make something happen. Ogbayani gets on base to start the inning. Cassidy Pickering singles to get on to have 2 on, and all of a sudden Ella Parker's up, who's the last person you want up there if you're Tennessee. And the way that Tennessee, I was telling you, Pickens was so good all day. I mean, other than just a handful of pitches. And just a couple of them happened to go to Ella Parker, and who's becoming, arguably the best hitter in softball right now. She's kind of overcome that injury bug she had early in the year. It's just like, wow, like you have to be perfect to beat this team. And even then, on days that you're damn near perfect, they just find a way. It's unbelievable. You just can't
give them extra lives.
No.
And Tennessee certainly did that. It's going to set up, like we said, a big-time matchup. But we do have some audio and some of the post-game press conference from Patty Gasso, who, I think over the last couple of months, and we've talked about this on the Stickball Report with Bob, it seems like she's a little bit taken aback even by the run that this team is on and, how unprecedented everything is going for a 5th national title in a row.
I think not only the last couple of months and what this young team has been able to do, but the last few years, like you can hear her, every time she talks, she's like, she's lost words for how this is happening. And obviously, it's a huge credit to her, what she's built, the way she's recruited, and all of that. And then to have these girls believing in, you heard it in the press conference, just, as long as they have one more swing left in them, one more pitch, they've got a chance. And that's just the truth. That's what OU softball is right now, is they've always got a chance.
It's unbelievable. This is the Around the Quarter, though. Taking all your questions from the Crimson Quarter. We're going to kind of intersect some of the post-game stuff from softball up the street at Devon Park with some of your questions from the Crimson Quarter. Obviously, kind of a little bit of an easier way to get back you some of the information. But welcome back, first off, from Destin, Florida.
Great
SEC
time.
Spring Meetings. A ton of content on SoonerScoop.com right now. You got to talk to Brent Venables multiple times while you were down there, and it sounds like everything went pretty well for what it is.
Yeah, it was a great event in terms of media access, getting some good stuff, whether that's on the record or even off the record, just talking to folks down there. It was really good, and hearing from Brent, obviously we didn't hear from him a ton in the spring, so getting to ask him some very team-specific questions as well as just overall, where's the program at with all this momentum, heading into what is, the biggest season, in a long time for OU, and obviously Brent Venables and his future.
Certainly we'll have more on the football side of things as we enter the summer months. Brent Venables football camp starting up on Sunday. Josh McCuistion will be out there. I'll be out there. George, you are invited. Carrie will be out there.
I'll be out
Andrew
there.
West, our intern, will be out there. It should be. It's kind of a. I don't know. Sometimes it sucks, but then sometimes you go out there and it's like, oh, we found somebody. This is going to be a big time player. And
it seems like there always is a couple guys.
And they've thrown out offers more and more here over the last couple of years. So a lot more content to come on SoonerScoop.com from the football camps. And then obviously you talked to Porter Moser and Jenny Baranczyk down in Destin as well. Positive momentum, certainly for Baranczyk's crew getting to the Sweet 16 this year.
And then Porter. I can tell you, Porter's pretty fired up. I know
crazy.
Bob is going to end up writing up some of those stories, but I talked to him for 10 or 15 minutes down there, and he's as excited as I can remember him being at OU.
I would say also, just in short too, and I know that I'm sure that Bob's going to write about this, but just having some resources, some more resources than they've had, I think it certainly shows with what they were able to go do in the transfer portal for basketball.
Yeah, and Joe C. told me down there too that was a big emphasis, and they were able to, as an athletic department, with the way that the new bill is that Governor Stitt passed a couple months ago, the athletic department was able to give them more resources. And then as well as they, Porter did a great job of retaining guys so that they only added 4 guys in the portal. They didn't have to rebuild the entire team like they did the last couple years. They were able to say, hey, we're going to focus on these 4 guys, and they went and got them.
All right, let's get into some of the questions from the Crimson Quarter. First, we're going to start with a little bit of post-game reaction from Patty Gasso, as well as the belle of the ball, Ella Parker, after her 3-run walk-off home run on Thursday.
Wow. It's speechless when you're down there, and when you're a team that is just struggling to find a way to get on base. And I thought Tennessee played outstanding, Pickens pitched outstanding. The one thing that we noticed, and I'll just be really honest, is I was watching people leave the game, and it was in the 7th, and I kind of shared that with the team. Not that had anything to do with anything, but people thought we were done. And one thing, if you're watching us through the season, we're never done. You give us one extra strike or one extra pitch, and we're going to find something out of it. And usually Ella's on the end of that.
I just think it was really cool to have all those players that I looked up to either in the dugout with me or right against the fence in the front row. And I think I looked at Jossie the last at bat, and I was like, we got this. So being able to finally be that, it just makes me really passionate about what's to come for our future and being able to pass that down to next generation. Just understanding just to keep passing the bat. I wasn't trying to make any moment too big. I thought all of our batters before that did a good job of just staying loose throughout the moment and not letting the moment get too big. And honestly, I looked at Maya Bland and she said, God's got you. He's our 4th man in the fire. And I just stuck with it and ran with it, and we kept the faith until the end.
Bob wrote about it on Friday on SoonerScoop.com, but getting over the hump or coming back in that game, so important when you're talking about actually making a run through the bracket here once you get to Oklahoma City. I think it's like 85 or 90% of the teams that end up winning the national championship, they win that first game because of the long road that you have to come back from. OU's obviously done it since I think they're the last team to do it in 2021 with James Madison, right?
Yep.
Odyssey Sims, but don't have to worry about it. OU in the winners bracket, and the first, comment coming from the Crimson Quarter, of course, starts with the GOAT, Patty Gasso. Sooner Bold says the first thought during our last ABs was how calm and cool Patty was, smiling and confident. Basically, the effing GOAT behavior. And yeah, I mean, I think that there is a certain facade or whatever you want to say that's
aura.
Like aura out on the front of everything, but there is a true belief that they're not out of a game until the 21st out is recorded.
Yeah, and I think it's not only that, but also the thought that OU didn't play their best yesterday. They ended up winning, but even if they lose that game, like, you still don't count them out. Like, and I think Patty knows that, and the fact of it is like somebody's going to have to probably beat them twice to eliminate. They're going to have to lose twice in the next week.
That's what happens in a double elimination tournament.
Yes, but like,
it's a good call.
But when you think about it that way, it's like, how's OU going to lose 2 games?
Yeah.
Like, that just doesn't happen. And
like
even with this young
team,
team,
like the Thunder having to get beat 4 times to not win a world championship.
MVP, wear my shirt.
Got the shirt on.
Kerry made a comment that. He hates the Thunder. But anyways, what I was trying to say is I think Patty knows that her team is special in the way that they approach it. And that's what makes them so good is they are a representation of their coach, and their coach is ultra confident in her group and her team and, her assistants, whoever it may be, that they're going to find a way to win, or at least give them the best chance to win.
On the flip side of all the Oklahoma stuff, Karen Weekly, the head coach for Tennessee, certainly stepped in it. She had some questions asked of her as well after the game, because I think the popular thought, at least online, to everybody that was watching that game is why do you even take the chance with Ella Parker? She had hit a home run in the bottom of the first earlier in the game, and just walk her. But then again, that puts the the tying run in scoring position on second. It puts the winning run in Ella Parker on first base. It's all hindsight, right? It's all I guess Saturday morning or Monday morning quarterbacking.
She took a bet on her superstar, Pickens, who had been just spectacular all day. Now, she did give up the home run earlier in the game to Ella Parker.
But outside of that, I mean,
she was unbelievable.
So many times through the first or basically through the seventh inning, it was like, oh, you just can't get any runners on. They can't get that little.
And when they did, they couldn't do anything with it.
Right. Right. So I don't know. It'll be second guessed. I'm sure that they are second guessing it in Knoxville as well. No, just knowing those message boards, I'm sure VolQuest has been on fire over the last 24 hours. But Karen Weekly was asked about thinking, was she going to, was there any thought in walking Ella Parker in the seventh inning? Here's what she had to say.
Not really, because, it's 3-1. You have two runners on. And if you walk her, that means you put the winning run on base. So you have to make a decision there. The key thing in that inning was Agbayani, drawn a walk. You look at that, and strategy-wise, you're like, okay, we can get through this inning and get out of here without ever rolling the order back around to the top. And when you walk her, you know that you're going to face Pickering and Parker again.
It's a pretty simple answer, and I think that what she says is right. You're starting with the walk there to the 7 hole because you had 7, 8, 9 coming up, and then when you walk Alana Agbayani to start the inning, I think it was on 5 pitches. It kind of started the circus for Tennessee there in the 7th inning.
And she bet on her players. You can't ever blame a coach for betting on their own players.
And Pickens, like you said, had been excellent through basically 6 1/3, 6 2/3 before the bomb there with 2 outs left. And sometimes great players end up making great plays, and that's what Ella Parker ended up doing. There was some controversy coming out of the game on Thursday. I guess we call it controversy. It's kind of become a little bit of a storyline that just comes along with Oklahoma playing at Devon Park, and that is basically playing in their own backyard.
Which, to be fair, Eddie, I do think it's certainly an advantage for 100%. Oklahoma. It is. Is it the reason why they've won 4 straight national titles? No, definitely not. Now, I'm sure as a player having to play in front of a obviously dominant crowd in Oklahoma, as well as just the travel that OU doesn't have to have. I think they stay in Oklahoma City.
They do. NCAA mandates that you have to stay in, I guess, whatever. Like, but you have to stay at the hotel and all that kind of stuff.
The fact that you're not flying, all that stuff. It certainly. So I understand where it's coming from. In this case, it's clear that,
she was angry.
She was angry.
She was angry after the game. Yeah. And I do think that you're right. Like, you would be ignorant or maybe a little naive to even say that, or delusional to say that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, look at the Agbayani at bat. You start out 2-0, all of a sudden the crowd's into it. It makes each pitch that much more important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that is taken away a little bit from what Oklahoma's been able to do, certainly 100%. Over the last 4 years, this year. And it's been well documented. Bob's done an incredible job all season talking about all the newcomers and the ups and downs. And we talked about it on the Stickball Report, just like what's really to expect. We were trying to examine this team and find like all the holes in it.
Yeah.
And they still ended up winning the SEC regular season. Technically, I guess we're co-champions at the tournament, and they're the highest seeded remaining team left in the field.
And the clear favorites to win it, I think, at this point.
I think so.
I think it's kind of open still. Like, the way Kennedy's pitching for Tech.
That bottom side of the bracket, that winter bracket game tomorrow is going to be really interesting with Tech and UCLA because Nigel Kennedy was unbelievable in a 1-0 win on Thursday night in the first game of the night session. All right, let's go to the clip or the slide here talking about Karen Weekly, because I know a lot of people had a lot of comments on it. Beezer, the Tennessee coach, is a fool. You don't pitch to Parker right there. Marinas was 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts, which is a fact. Nelly had not had a good day at the plate against Pickens. The only one who hit the ball hard was Ella, and it kind of makes the question of
Ella also though she struck out the last time she had been up to bat.
It was either a strikeout or a fly out. I can't remember.
I think she struck out.
Yeah,
and Pickering Pickering had a fly out her last bat up.
Unbelievable. It just all kind of came together, and I know that it's kind of cliche, and sometimes you roll your eyes at it, but Sooner Magic certainly was there for whatever it was at the Devon Ballpark on Thursday. Here is the clip from Karen Weekly. We'll show it to you, and then we'll have a little bit of a follow-up comment.
Well, there's a lot of talent out there. I mean, they have some of the absolute best players in the country. Patty Gass was a phenomenal coach. You don't win that many national championships without being an exceptional coach. And you also have 9,900 people on your side. So, it's an environment that you have to fight through. But I thought our kids did a really good job of that today.
When you hear her
She's
say
not
it,
wrong. She's not wrong in any of that.
When you hear her say it, it does come across a little bit better than reading it, because when I read it, it was like, oh, that sounds like a pissed off coach after the game.
Which she was.
Certainly was.
Why wouldn't she be?
She should be.
Yeah.
Blew a 2-run lead in the final inning with basically an out left to knock off OU. Anywho, that's the softball discussion from today here on the Around the Quarter. Bob Prisbill will be out there. You can read all his reports from Oklahoma, moving on into a winter bracket game coming up on Saturday against Texas and Mike White, which I don't know. There's something about these two teams outside of the natural rivalry that, I don't know, it makes it seem more electric or bigger than what it actually is.
I think there's some real hate there.
Between Patty and Mike White?
I don't know about between those two, but just between
certainly
the programs, it feels like.
Sure. No doubt about it. All right, let's get into a little bit of the stuff coming out of SEC spring meetings. You talked to Joe Castiglione. I think it was last week we talked about it here on the Around the Quarter with the 5% cut in athletic department. Just, I guess, as a whole, just kind of lay all out what you knew from Joe C. and what you were able to share with us.
Yeah, it's pretty much what, the OU Daily was the first one to report on it, and they did a good job of laying it out. But they are, removing basically, from what I understand, 5% of positions. So what that results in terms of actual people being laid off is somewhere around 14, 15 people. Now, talking to Joe down in Destin, he explained it more in a way that is like restructuring, moving resources, reallocating them in different places. And I think one of those places you're seeing is the football program, because while they're having these, quote unquote layoffs and reduction in staff, you're also seeing them hire a whole front office for the football program. So where are those jobs actually, leaving? Like where are they getting rid of those jobs? I'm not exactly sure. Joe C. didn't really go into those details, but it does not seem like it's coming from football.
I'm sure the jobs are important. It sucks when somebody loses their job, right?
Yeah.
So we're not making
And Joe
light
C.
of it
took
by
a
any
pay
means.
cut.
Sure. But it does seem like, from a structural standpoint, it's not going to be big offices that are going to have to be eliminated.
And this is something that, and I think I
mean no disrespect.
No, and I think I said this on last week's show, but this is something that you're seeing across, college athletics. There's a lot of programs that are doing these sort of, restructuring, layoff type of moves because they have to prepare
even the
for
schools with money. I mean, A&M did the same thing. That was about a year and a half ago.
And theirs was a lot larger than this, from what I understand. And
I want to say it was like 35.
Yeah, it was
40 jobs.
It was around 40. And I was talking to some folks down in Destin that cover Texas, and they were asking me about it. And they were like, "Texas has done that. They just didn't publicly really release it that they were doing it." So it's not something that is unique to Oklahoma.
Let's go to the Crimson Corner for reaction on the athletic department moves. Grateful Dead, streamlining, reallocating, strategic reorganization. Dude, nut up, just call it layoffs. Your fancy thesaurus words don't change reality. Grateful Dead says, but it's not layoffs, so why would he call it that? The entire department and football program have been and are currently going through a massive restructuring. Just like he said, in a layoff situation, you aren't hiring additional staff as well. Numbnuts. That's always a good addition. That's like calling somebody a chief. We have added and continue to add a S-load of staff that includes people in a department like Nagy's that didn't exist a year ago. That $900,000 is just one job. Look at the other management positions he has hired. Then you have to hire support staff for those people in that department and for Nagy. No E, just a Y. So it is far from a layoff scenario. His job alone is a $900,000 year job now on the books. That wasn't there in past years. Layoffs. It's a strategic restructuring, exactly like he said. Some of you just have to find something about Joe to, I'm guessing, bitch about. Whether it's accurate or not. This is a perfect example of that. I would say probably
Great reading there, Ed.
Well said.
Yes, very well said. I think he's right. At the same time, Joe C definitely danced around saying the word layoffs or cutting. I think he specifically said it's not cutting when, technically you are cutting some jobs. People are going to lose their jobs in this sense. So I understand the original poster's point, but to Grateful Dead's point, he's right. They are, adding staff members as well. They're moving money around, and you're going to see a lot of that over the next year or so, with this revenue sharing, if it passes, which we'll see if it ever does pass. But the $20.5 million that they're going to have to pay these players has to come from somewhere. And, I think Oklahoma is trying to get its priorities in line. And I think the number one priority right now is making sure OU football wins some games, because if they do, then everybody else in the athletic department, those jobs, those other sports that aren't revenue generating will benefit because of it.
Absolutely. I mean, it all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Real quick, there was no house settlement announcement this week. And I know that you kind of went down there thinking maybe there was a chance that was going to happen.
Yeah, even the athletic directors, all of them talked about it. They would all joke during their media session, well, have you guys heard any news yet? Or is it going to pass? Like, they're waiting just like everybody else. And the anticipation, the expectation is that it will eventually. But, every week that goes by, you're like, well, what's holding it up? What's the next thing that, I was talking to Andy Staples about it, and he said, if Claudia Wilkins comes back and says, you guys have to do this, they're going to do it. They're going to do whatever she asks because they have to get this thing passed. It's their only hope.
We just wait. We wait. It's kind of like the OU quarterback situation. Just wait. There's nothing else you can do about it. You did write coming out of Sandestin talking about the quarterback position, and Brent Venables had some interesting comments why they weren't so active in the portal here during the spring. That was one of the positions that we thought maybe OU would try to look for another body.
I think he gave a great answer to me about just roster building in general when answering this question, because he basically said, we like the guys we have on the roster right now, so much so that we don't want to spend the money that we do have, because it's not unlimited money. He and Joe C said that down in Destin. They don't just have unlimited resources, but the money that they do have, they felt like it was better used somewhere else. Getting a Jaden Ott, Jake Michaela, a kicker in Tate Sandell, which was crucial. And they just didn't think that the market was that good at corner. And I think the other thing, too, that OU fans will like to hear, Brent has tremendous faith in guys like an Eli Bowen, who's coming off a freshman All-American season, Jacoby Johnson, who we've seen flashes of just being a really good player, and last year was kind of hindered because he got thrown in on offense a little bit, so he didn't get to do a whole bunch of defensive stuff. And then Gentry Williams, and if he can stay healthy, they believe he's worth betting on.
People are going to think that that's his last name. It's Gentry Williams. Can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
Because it always comes after you say his name, basically. And that's going to be the bit. It is. That is what it is going into the season. You can read a little bit more in depth about the quarterback position on Soonerscoop.com. But we do have a question from the board talking about OU's, I guess, lack of interest in a cornerback coming out of the spring portal. Oziah a true freshman, was OU's. He did all the electricity in the office. That's right. Did a great job with it.
Yeah, look, we're up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he did all this stuff at the new one, too, in the new studio.
Nice.
That we can't wait to debut. A true freshman was OU's best cornerback last year, talking about Eli Bowen. I feel confident that the corner room is going to be good to go for the team for this upcoming season. That was in response to Boro Boomer that said, well, see, I suppose I get the resources are limited, but it's shaky counting on really young pups for the most part, and Gentry Williams.
I would push back on that when you say young pups. Definitely in terms of depth, you're counting on young guys that have not played. Cortland Guillory, Malik Hawkins, Tristan Haynes. Second year guys, Jeremiah Newcomb. Jacoby Johnson is in his third year at Oklahoma, and we've talked a lot on this show about you see a jump usually in their third year in this system. I expect that jump from Jacoby Johnson. I think he is, probably going to start maybe the season even. So I think that he's somebody that they're really counting on. I would also say, Kendall Dolby is somebody that obviously has played a lot of football for Oklahoma. He can play corner, and he's a 4-year guy. So I do think that they have some actual veteran experience. Eli Bowen, I know it's only his second year, but obviously he played a ton last year. And then Gentry's the wild card, Eddie.
Sure.
If Gentry Williams is healthy, you love that cornerback room. You don't feel bad about the depth or the experience or whatever it is that you're worried about. It's just, can he do it? I think he only played 17 snaps last year, got hurt. I think it was the second or third game of the season, and we just never saw him again. You just hope he can be healthy, because if he is, he's an NFL caliber corner.
And everything with the Kendall Dolby situation kind of relies on what's happening at
Kendall
Cheetah.
Daniels.
Is Kendall Daniels going to be that guy that everybody thinks he's going to be? Should be some moving parts as we go into the beginning of fall camp in August. I don't think that there's anybody that is bigger fans of John Mateer and just being able to see what we've seen than me, you, Carrie, Josh, Bob. I know that we've all talked about him in some instance coming out of the spring. But if there is somebody that loves him more than us, it might be J.D. Pickell.
Oh my gosh, the guy loves him.
On 3, Oklahoma
it's like a video
is
every day.
it's an Oklahoma content factory with On 3 and J.D. Pickell. But he did put out a recent video talking about John Mateer, and this was his post on our board. I've been vocal about my Mateer infatuation. Saw an anonymous coach say it was a gamble taking him. First thought, more than a gamble of rolling with a different portal quarterback or hoping that a room would level up after an offseason. I digress. Wondering if anybody saw this, had another angle. As always, only come with the original stuff. Love JB Pick 6. I think that, we talked about that comment from the anonymous report last week.
Yep.
Kind of is what it is. Yeah, they're taking a chance, but I think that you feel pretty good about that chance.
Yeah, look, he's done it, at a high level at Washington State, and I think what makes you feel comfortable is, again, the thing that we've said ad nauseum is his relationship with Ben Arbuckle. And I can tell you, being down in Destin, there's a lot of national media that are very intrigued by John Mateer and how good maybe he can be for Oklahoma. There's a lot of people that think he could be sort of like the Cam Ward of this last year, where he just comes out of nowhere and is just kind of not out of nowhere, but
sure, it
was a big transfer, but you were like, what is he going to do at Miami? Can he be really that great? And then he's spectacular from Miami. I think there's a lot of national people that are very interested. I would say not just in John Mateer, but Oklahoma in general, that they think that they're a very curious team this year.
I don't know if he's going to end up being the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, no.
But certainly, like, if he could work his way into like that second day 3, day 2, day 3,
yeah. Look, if he does,
outstanding news for OU offensively.
Look, if he does exactly what he did last year at Washington, like he did at Washington State, 44 touchdowns, over 4,000 total yards, scrimmage yards, that would be spectacular.
If he does that in the SEC, he's going to be in New York City.
Yes.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves though yet. We think he's going to be good. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. How about that? On Thursday, we did get kickoff times for the start of the season. That was a story that you had put out there. I guess it was Thursday morning, right?
Thursday morning.
Basically Thursday afternoon. The big one, OU Texas, 2:30 again, second year in a row. I guess the second biggest one maybe would be the Michigan week, and that's going to be a night kickoff at 6:30 in Norman.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be College Game Day. When you look at the games that weekend, it's the biggest game.
It's not a great slate in week 2, coming off of what should be a phenomenal Labor Day weekend with Ohio State and Texas and all that. Well, and
that's
what's
really cool is you have Ohio State and Texas week 1, and then you turn around and you have OU Michigan week 2. I mean,
cool.
Talk about just some premier matchups in college football.
OSU goes to like Autzen Stadium that weekend. They go up to Eugene.
Oh, is that Oregon?
That's a CBS game though.
Yeah.
There's the Cyhawk, Iowa State and Iowa's at like 2:30. That's a Fox game, though.
Yeah.
I think Big Fox has already announced that they're going to be going up to that one. So you would think that the first game day without Lee Corso is going to be in Norman,
crazy.
Oklahoma. Kind of weird to say. The other two games that we do know, the season opener on August 30th is a 5 o'clock kickoff on ESPN Plus against Illinois State, home of Ed Radosevich, Normal, Illinois. And then September 6th, we knew about the week 2 game against Michigan. September 13th, the first road game to Philadelphia at Temple, 11 a.m. in Central Time Zone, noon in Philadelphia.
If you're going to the game in Philly, if you're making that trip, or if you live in Philadelphia or somewhere up there and you're going to the game, I can understand the frustration. But most OU fans will be at home, and I think that when you play a road game and you're a fan, I think that you kind of like almost waking up in the games there, and then you have the rest of your Saturday.
That game will be televised on ESPN2 as well. So there was a lot of talk about scheduling and all that kind of stuff coming out of Destin, and it seems like, I don't know if you were around it, but Kalen DeBoer certainly had some thoughts on the SEC schedule. We'll take some of the slides. Brett McMurphy had reported Alabama's Kalen DeBoer on being left out of last year's college football playoff. Quote, "You wonder what would have happened if other people would have played our schedule," end quote. Kind of seems weird.
Yeah, and, I think that his point is somewhat valid, because I do think that, like, if you were to have...
you're going to offend a fan base. Better watch.
I think if you would have, some of these Big Ten schools or an ACC school play Alabama's schedule, maybe their record looks different. But at the same time, it's just kind of a lame move by Kalen DeBoer to be bitching about that in May.
You can't bitch about losing in Nashville to Vanderbilt. You lost to
losing
Oklahoma, 6-7 Oklahoma.
A bad OU team.
And kind of got their ass beat in that game. So, it was definitely kind of strange.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of that, though, down at spring meetings. These coaches get down there and they
the tenor on...
There's a lot of bitching and moaning down there.
What's the mood on Kalen DeBoer right now with the Alabama Scribes?
Not good. I would say. Well, I would say that the expectations are very high this year.
Sure.
They expect them to be like national title contenders this season, and if they're not, which was brought up several times down there, talking to a few people that either cover Alabama or national guys, and they're like, if they're not, Kalen's seat is going to be very, very warm.
Year 2.
In year 2. Yeah.
They're crazy. The Shandon, his point is fair. Give OU scheduled to SMU and Indiana last year, and they don't even make a bowl game.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about the. Those are two good examples, though. Like, it'd be interesting to see what SMU would have done with a SEC
or like
schedule.
Indiana wouldn't have run the table like
without
they did.
Having Indiana's schedule in front of me. I could certainly tell you they probably have. I would be comfortable saying more than 1 or 2 losses.
100%. 100%. And SMU. I mean, I think both those teams probably go like 8-4. They don't miss a bowl game, right? I thought both those teams were good football teams last year. I mean, they would have beat Oklahoma probably. But I don't think that they're, going, having the record. What did SMU finish? Like 11-2?
Yeah, something like that.
And then, Indiana was
11-2.
Yeah.
11-1 going into the playoffs. But yeah,
so I get the point.
UCLA, they played at UCLA. They played Charlotte and Bloomington. That was a non-con game, obviously. Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue. That was their
so
Big
they
Ten
played.
schedule.
Yeah, they played one good team, Ohio State. And I mean, Michigan wasn't obviously great, but they're still a solid team,
no doubt. They pushed Notre Dame, I guess, in the playoff, but neither here nor there. We'll see. People, this is the time of the year. This is talking season, so people are going to examine everything within
season for coaches
within a
too.
Schedule. Who had the best quote down there? Did anybody make any big waves? Lane kind of mind his manners, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He didn't really say anything. Kirby Smart said some interesting stuff down there, just
about the playing the players and stuff.
Yeah, I know we have that. I think that's on our list of things we'll get to, but nothing really too crazy, I would say.
Yeah, well, you can get right into that because there were some comments talking about paying for commitments. And I think that Josh, maybe even Carrie, has insinuated this on the Unofficial 40 before on the podcast, just talking about, it's kind of known out there that there's some schools that have no problem ponying up some money just to get a commitment. That doesn't mean that
USC.
they're going to end up at the school.
Yes.
And yeah, I think Southern California has been one of those schools that has been mentioned doing so.
Rumored, right?
Especially with some of the Georgia kids. Top high school football recruits are now earning six figures to guarantee their commitment to programs. Quote, I've heard guys making $25K a month, end quote, a Power 4 general manager told our own Pete Nakos, which that seems crazy.
Yeah, I don't...
$25K a month?
I think some of these GMs, coaches sometimes can be a little bit dramatic. So I don't know if I believe that in full. You know, I think that might be a bit of an exaggeration. But if you told me maybe $5,000 a month, that's...
To some schools, that's a
drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
It's nothing. So I would believe that. But I definitely think, you know, in terms of guys getting money to commit, I think that's certainly happening. And not only to commit, but to come on campus. Like I've heard that for portal guys, just to get them to visit it, they're paying them money to come. So I think that it's crazy, man. They got to get it under control. I don't know if they can. I really, you know, talking to some of the people down there that, you know, cover this every single day in terms of what's going to happen in college football landscape, they don't believe, even if, you know, this new house settlement, there's going to be loopholes. People are going to find ways to, you know, get around, you know, these roadblocks. So I don't know, man, but that's crazy.
Well, that doesn't sound like we're still in a bad spot is what it sounds like.
Yes,
it doesn't
it
sound
is.
like anything's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but yeah.
Oh, gosh. All right.
I will say, before we go to this next slide, several national media people asked me about Jim Nagy, front office, all this stuff. And, you know, I told them about it. And they're like, you know, talking to people, OU is way ahead of the curve.
Interesting.
In terms of what they're trying to build. Even if the settlement doesn't go through, they feel like OU has set themselves up to be successful in some fashion in this, you know,
whatever the new world looks like.
Yes.
We'll see. Let's go to the Curts Quarter. Teddy M said, just embarrassing for the sport that it's come to this. I've read if you decommit, schools are trying to get you to pay back whatever money was given to that point. Just let another school pay for a developmental year and poach them the following year. I don't think that that's like necessarily the lawsuits, in using Arkansas as an example, that had to do with them signing NIL deals, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Whereas this is, I don't know how this works in terms of giving the money back. You know, if you didn't sign anything,
I kind of think if you didn't sign anything, if you're not
you don't have to give
binded
money
to something,
you don't have to give
kind
any
of
of the money
SOL if you're the school and the guy ends up packing up.
My question would be, if these schools that are paying for commitments, are they having them sign something?
Sure.
But I don't know, is that legal to have them sign something?
I don't think so.
Binding them to the school in some fashion. Like, I feel like that would be highly illegal. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, start doing it and then you'll find out.
I also don't think that it's like, I don't think when this is being reported, I don't think it's just like hundreds of schools are doing this. Like, it's not like everybody's doing this. I think it's probably a very small handful of schools that have maybe done it maybe a few times for big recruits. I don't know, though. It's interesting.
One more comment from the Crimson Corner. Cherokee Gothic Drawls says, what's overlooked is the type of person you attract by doing these recruiting gimmicks. Yeah, they are talented, but will they maximize it in your program? Look at A&M's historic class and how that turned out. What do you think a top quarter from Ohio's main interest is when he's committing to go across the country to play for Lincoln Riley? Hint, it's not learning how to play defense. And yeah, I mean, I think that when you do see some of these cases where it's like, that's kind of weird that they went into whatever school, whether it be a defensive tackle from Georgia that ends up in Los Angeles or what, there is something to it. There's something that kind of smells a little bit funny.
And Brent talked not about this specifically down there, but in terms of their approach to recruiting guys and finding guys that are loyal to Oklahoma. They're not loyal to a paycheck or, you know, stuff off the field. They just want to come play football, get better. And obviously it's a business. That's part of it. You're going to pay them in some fashion. You know, how much that's worth, it depends on the player. But I think you do have to have that approach, though, and have to be cautious with some of these guys, because they might be great talents, but if they're going to be a constant headache off the field in terms of, you know, contract negotiations or whatever it is, then they may not be worth whatever you're paying them to stay committed or sign with you or whatever it is. And that's the hard part, I think, for coaches. And, you know, Kirby Smart alluded to it. It's just, you know, you have to be very focused on you're recruiting a player, but you're also recruiting a person, and you don't want to have that kind of person maybe in your locker room that can cause those sort of issues. But it's hard because a lot of times, the players that are the best,
they're not paying the 2-star kid from wherever because he has a great heart.
Exactly.
Loves the team.
So it's very hard to find both
the upper echelon of the recruiting ranks.
Right.
What a sport. What a world. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here next week on the Around the Corner. Plenty to get into here over the course of the weekend, too, on SoonerScoop.com. Obviously, the big softball game and the winner's bracket coming up on Saturday at 2 o'clock. OU baseball, and a little bit of a rain delay as we record this on a Friday afternoon, but they should get going at the Chapel Hill Regional at some point sometime soon. We'll see. We'll talk to you next time.